Hi everyone. There's no point me talking now. I think Molly's just said everything I was going to say. But thanks for the introduction. That's me, and I'm just going to give you a little bit of a background about me. I do apologise in advance. My PowerPoint skills aren't as good as Dimitar's, and my backstory probably isn't as good as Jordan's. But you're here, so you're stuck with me. In 2019, I lost two friends to suicide within 4 days of each other. Neither was known to the other, so there was no knock-on effect or ripple effect from the one suicide to the other. And it was at that point I realised that I was part of the problem and not the solution. So I was always told, and when I started doing my free design on PowerPoint, if you want someone to remember your presentation, tell them a story. So I'm going to take you back so you can understand why I'm stood here today talking to you all. Or I'll try. I had a good childhood, some shocking fashion accessories, but good childhood memories. There's a lot of people that end up where I am now that have come from really hard sort of upbringings. I didn't have that. I had a comfortable childhood, nice memories, really good family unit around me. I was a bit of a social nomad at school. I wasn't in the in crowd or in that certain friendship group. I just sort of bounced around from one to the other. I never fell out with anybody. I just sort of moved about a bit. At the age of 12, my mum was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I didn't really, looking back now, know how to create any kind of emotion. It just left me numb, completely numb. I didn't have happy times, didn't have sad times. I just coasted along and went with the flow. And I didn't realise that it shouldn't be that way. No one was talking about it. No one was talking about feeling sad, happy, elated, depressed. There was no talk of mental health at school, no discussions of it at home, and there certainly weren't any discussions of it down the rugby club or any other sort of macho environment. And it just stayed with me. It stayed with me throughout school. I left school, I joined the RAF. Looking back now, I joined the RAF to escape reality, to get away from things. At the time, I joined the RAF to see the world and have a career and do all that. I spent the best part of 7 years working hard and playing harder. I was the ultimate master of masking my emotions. Anything that came along, I masked it. At the start of my career, after a long-fought battle and some short spells of remission, I lost my mum to cancer at 18. Still, the emotions were masked. I had no way of expressing how I felt, good or bad memories, anything like that. And it was a week after she passed away, I went straight back into training, and I was loving it because I was making those unbreakable bonds that I'd never really made at school, and I was starting to understand what friendships were like, and I treat them as family nowadays, the friends that I made there. I left training. I left the 3 hours sleeping in a muddy field that I loved, and then, as you can see, I became a war junkie. I'd done multiple tours of Iraq and Afghanistan, exercises in Belize. It was basically a 2-month party, and places like the USA. All the time, just playing, just masking those emotions. I didn't know how to bring them out and talk to people. And there was never a discussion, ever, about how we actually felt, how our mental health was. You ask the question, how are you? Yeah, I'm fine, because it's what we do. Nobody ever taught us to ask that next question. In 2019, in February, I woke up to the news that a friend of mine who I'd played rugby with and against for the best part of a decade had taken his own life. 4 days later, whilst I was still trying to process that, still not showing any emotion, I had news that a second friend of mine had taken her own life. Both of these friends were the ones that lit up the room that they walked into. You were a better person for knowing them. You just felt good to be in their company. And I didn't know why it was happening. Why didn't they talk to me? Why didn't we spot it? We were their friends. Some of the things that suicide brings around, how dare they? How dare they be so selfish? That was all going through our minds. It was at that point I realised I was the problem. All of this had happened because me and thousands of other men out there, and I say men because I run a men's mental health charity. There might be some women guilty of it as well. We don't talk about it. They never knew they could come to me and talk about how they truly felt, that they were alone in the world and they thought there was no one else to talk to. I'd never given them the opportunity. I'd probably passed judgment. I'd made jokes about mental ill health because I didn't know any better. I was the problem, and it was at that point that I thought, right, something has to be done. So we started Tough Enough to Care. Me and a small group of friends had this, as usual, drunken, hungover, weird idea. Let's get people talking. How do we do it? We're now a change-making, international reaching charity, and it started off from a small Facebook group. One post of me saying, just talk. I don't know how to help you, but just come and talk to me and we'll get the answers together. We go out, as Molly said in the introduction, all over the UK. We go online so we can reach people abroad, and we just encourage the conversation. To date, we've delivered talks and training to over 3,500 people in organisations as big as Jaguar Land Rover and the RAF, all the way down to grassroots sports clubs that might have 20 members. We believe that everybody should have that access. It's my honest belief, and everybody else might have their own opinions on it, that the reason there's such a stigma that surrounds all types of mental health is because people don't understand it. There's such an emphasis growing up on physical health. You know, stay hydrated, you can run for longer. Oh, you've broken your leg, you're going to be in a cast for 6 weeks. We've all got those general ideas because people talk about it. No one talks about mental health. No one teaches us about mental health. So then again, no one talks about mental health. So we're out there just saying, come and talk to us. We do these talks, we go and do these shiny events, and it's brilliant. I've been invited to things like this. I've been invited to some really fun places, and it's got me into places I would never have got to just being an ex-tattooed squaddy that drinks beer and plays rugby. So it's great. But sadly, sometimes we see the darker side of what mental health has to offer. I've enjoyed it myself twice, as mentioned. But as you see, the nice shiny blue camper van, the tough truck, which again goes to the events, we also use that to react to people in crisis who reach out to us, and we work on real-time information, and we've gone out in all weathers, any time of day or night, and we've actively intervened in suicide attempts. While somebody is there and sees there's no other option than to take their own life. Now, I don't usually publicly talk about that service that we offer because it's not nice to band it around and, oh, look at what we've done. But I use that to show that change is possible. Anybody can change. You've got a bloke who for 34 years of his life ignored, ridiculed, just had no idea about mental health. I now go out in the middle of the night, in any weather, to support somebody's mental health. Now, if that's not a change that anybody could make, or if that's not a sign that anybody could make a change in their life, I don't know what is. Should also mention, we do peer support groups, and it's one of the things that's probably most important of what we do, so I feel a bit bad for forgetting it. It's where the magic happens. Blokes turn up and talk, and it sounds crazy, but to get somebody to walk through that door, that's actually one of the venues, and it's not far from here, that we hold our weekly support groups. For someone to walk through that door takes immeasurable courage, but the reward that awaits them on the other side, having just talked to somebody and lighten that load and using each other's experiences, you know, I've tried this, have you tried that, oh, let's all do this. You can't get that anywhere else. Money can't buy that kind of support, that's the peer support. And that's what we try, and I try and emphasise to everybody. You don't need a shiny red, blue truck. You don't need a big red door and a fancy old building. You can do it in a coffee shop. You can do it around your mate's flat. You can just have that conversation. How? How do we all do it? I've spent 3 years, I've been thrown in at the deep end, and I've had to learn pretty quickly how to do it. Mainly my own fault, so I can't blame anyone. But just talk. The how is just talk. By talking about mental health, it normalises that conversation. As I said, we go out and we actively intervene and we support people who have attempted suicide. And in the following conversations, having helped them, they all tell us that had somebody stopped them and talked and genuinely asked, how are you? And talked about their mental health, they wouldn't have gone through with it. There's a guy who's got videos all over YouTube. He jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge and survived in San Francisco. He says, had someone stopped him that morning and just acknowledged him as a human being, he wouldn't have gone through with it. Next, kindness. You might have heard the story about the guy who traded a red paperclip all the way up to a house in a few, I think it was 12 steps. That's what we can do with human kindness. Just saying hello to somebody in the morning, acknowledging somebody, holding a door open. It's just that small random act of kindness that you might have no idea how much it's affected that person. We have people contact me personally, the charity, they come up to us at events, and they said, you know what, you've got no idea, but I'm here today because of you. Because of something you did, a message you replied to, something you said to me at an event 2 years ago. You had no idea I had thoughts of taking my own life. And all we did was what we try and promote, kindness. Talk to anybody with the same sort of human kindness that you would to your own family, your best friend. And it's just that little moment, and you think, I didn't even know that. I just said hello to the guy. And it's small things like that that can lead from the little red paperclip up to owning a house. A lot of people, and I still kind of say it, I haven't got the time, I can't afford it. Well, we'll take time to start with. I'll ask all of you a favour. When we go into the break, get your smartphones out if you've got one. Have a look at the average daily and weekly screen time. Now tell me you haven't got time to be kind to somebody, and you'll be shocked. Because it only takes a second to reach out to an old friend. How's things? Haven't spoken a while. Give your nan a call. Tell someone that you know that you love them, providing you do. We all think we don't have time, but in the time it takes for a little game of Angry Birds on your phone to knock that little pig off a pedestal, you could unknowingly save someone's life. I'm not saying you've got to go out and text everybody you know every minute of every day, because it's not going to work like that, and then your screen time's going to go off and you're going to call me a liar. But just those little moments, when you get a spare second, don't think, oh, I should text so-and-so, but I've got to do this. Actually do it. Just stop and go, do you know what? No, I'm going to do it, because you don't know the impact it could have. Next, I can't afford it. I'm not having that. Because opening a door with a smile on your face costs you nothing. Just reaching out to somebody, it costs nothing. Kindness costs nothing, but again, it's a richness that money cannot buy. Giving somebody your time, your genuine interest, is something no money in the world could buy. What's next? I've sort of told you where I've come from, what we do, what we see in the future, what I want to see in the future. First and foremost, and this always gets a bit of a giggle, I want to meet the Queen. There we go. But there is method to it. Her Majesty will only ever grant an audience if you've done something profound, if you've done something really, well, worthy of her time. So if we get to meet the Queen, we've continued making the changes in people's lives. We've made those positive impacts that have seriously changed and helped people's lives. Next, we want conversations to happen all over the country. And it's only through talks like this that we get it to happen. Yep, the map's covered in Tough Enough to Care logos because I'm not going to advertise anybody else. But I don't care if it's not us. Use another organisation, set up your own. Just make the change in somebody's life that they can talk, that they have that outlet to talk, that option to talk. Talking of change, last week we launched our new rugby team, the Flaming Unicorns, and we are all about kicking stigma and changing people's outlook on mental health and the macho image and stuff like that. Last weekend, we had 45 rugby players, all had painted toenails, all had to wear a unicorn. In fact, I've got a unicorn tattooed on my leg from it. But it's about changing that way of thinking. Because through all of that, through the painted toenails and the fines getting thrown in and a bit of rugby getting played and some funky new tops, there was 150 people at a rugby club all talking about mental health. 3 years ago, when I started this charity, there would have been no one talking about it. They wouldn't have even had that game at the rugby club because, mental health, what's that? And this is the change that we're trying to promote. So make your own flaming unicorns, make your own appointment with the Queen. This is one of the two quotes that I want to leave you with. And for 3 years, as I say, we've been sharing positivity all over social media. And that's been 2 quotes a day, every day. So trust me, I've seen some quotes. Never look down on a person unless you're helping them up. As I mentioned before, the most honest act of human kindness is helping somebody up, physically or mentally. Just offering that open hand, just bringing them up to your level, being there with them and for them. And secondly, dare to change the world around you. After today, you don't have to change the world because individually we can't. It's impossible. But if you change the world around you, the impact that can have on somebody else's world is profound. And as I said, you may never know it. They may tell you straight away. But dare to be that change